Well, hello there, all your cool cats and kittens. I don't know if you've been watching the Tiger King, but I've seen multiple episodes, so I'm very obsessed, and I think that's actually crazy that she started off all her videos. But if you really like cats, I mean, I guess that's how you started. So, well, hello, you amazing anatomist. Well, today I am here and for a big treat. So, let's go ahead and hop to it. So today we'll be learning about the brachial plexus. Now, I'm not sure if you know what either of those words mean, because I can tell you sometimes they can be kind of confusing, but the brachial part is the part that works with the arm, and then a plexus. We'll go to the next slide, it gives us the definition. So as I said before, we were reviewing, plexus is a network of nerves and vessels. It helps me to be able to move my arm, at least the brachial plexus does. So I can do it this way and this way and this way, and then I can roll it around if I really want to, but you don't really see that in my small little screen, but don't worry, I have videos later to show it. So, as I said before, we'll be doing the brachial plexus. On our agenda, we'll start with the bone section, and then we'll go dive right in to learn about the drawing of the brachial plexus and the who, what, where, like what it does, where it is, who uses it, and then we'll go into muscle compartments because muscle compartments are pretty dependent on brachial plexus. Very not independent, codependent, no, not codependent, dependent relationship. So let's begin. On the bones, so we'll be working with the scapula, aka the shoulder blade, which can be some one of those bones and you look at it and you're like, what is this triangle thing? It's here. And you're going to be told to like know all these processes and places, and you might not know it, but you will after this. Whenever I was first given one, I always was really confused on which side is the anterior and which side is the posterior. So, little pro tip, if you're on the posterior side, there's a scapular spine, which I have my mouse rolling around. And that can be a good indicator that on your back, because just like us, how we have a spine on our back, so do the scapulas and the shoulder blades, the same thing. And that feeds into and slowly goes up to this little bit flatter process, and then it goes to acromana. I always say it really weirdly because I have to say it weirdly so I can pronounce it and so I can spell it on exams. But however you pronounce it is the best way so you can spell it later on. Acron process, which is a little bit flatter, and again, it's still on the back. And in all parts of anatomy, you always need to know the lateral, the medial, wherever it is stuff. So scapular spine, it goes like the medial, which is like straight down, and then it goes all the way down to the inferior angle to make this triangle thing. And then this rectangle part is not rectangle. This horizontal part is the lateral border. There's still two more things that we haven't gone over yet, and it is the carotid process, which is the other little pointy process on the front, on the anterior side, and the glenoid fossa, which helps us to connect to our humerus, and so that we can move it around to create a nice ball and socket thing. And you're wondering, what does the humerus look like? Well, here it is. Here's what you need to know about it. So there's the head, which is the part that goes in with the glenoid fossa that we just saw on the other page. But then there's also the greater tuberosity and the lesser tuberosity, which are on the lateral side. The greater tuberosity is a tiny bit higher, which is why it's called greater tuberosity. And then there's the lesser one, which is slightly lower. And those are very helpful because they're good points of connection for muscles. And we continue because like you keep probably seeing this little bone right here and you're like, what is this? It keeps showing up in all her pictures, but she's not talking about it. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it. This is called the clavicle. There's the acromial end. Funny, it actually attaches to the acromion process on the scapula. Who would have thought? And then there's the sternal end of the clavicle, which you should maybe guess, I don't know, but it connects with the sternum. And then there's still the lateral and medial ends of things. This is currently a right shoulder, but on the left shoulder, it's all the same stuff, just flipped on sides. But it's just good to recognize it based off pictures and not just knowing that it's on the left side or the right side. It's better to know it from the lateral and the medial end. So those are the bones. Now we're going to dive right into the brachial plexus, what helps move those bones around and is currently leaving its way through all those places to get us to do these arm movements. So like I said, it innervates the upper limb. It has somatic motor and sensory, and somatic motor nerves. It originates in the spinal level in C5 and T1 over here, and it travels through the axilla, which, oops, not there yet, which is kind of this little hole right in here, kind of in here. I can't really like bust my arm for you to show you, but like you can kind of see in this section of the picture over here, which is where it travels its way through to the axilla. Onward. All right, so we're going to start drawing out the brachial plexus. Remember, it is extensions of the cervical spinal nerves from 5 all the way to 8, and then the first thoracic spinal nerve, T1. So I'm just drawing these out. You can probably find a worksheet online. And we're starting to go into the different parts of the brachial plexus. So one of the first pieces are the roots, which I'm drawing, showing the extension, and those are just referred to as the anterior rami of the spinal cords. Just like a tree, the roots will eventually go into the trunk. So we will divide into 3 different trunks that are close to the base of the neck. We will have the superior trunk, the middle trunk, and the inferior trunk. The next part of the brachial plexus we'll be talking about are the divisions. So each trunk will split into 2 different divisions, which will either be going to the anterior end of the body or the posterior end of the body. Once these divisions go through the axilla of the body, they will recombine and create cords. These cords will be called the lateral cord, the posterior cord, and the medial cord. And they associate very closely with the axillary artery, which is how they get all their names because it's all relative to that artery. The next step on our ride through the brachial plexus is the terminal branches. I'm going to start by doing the tails. So we did like the lateral pectoral, the axillary, and then the medial pectoral. Next, we will go on to the more terminal ones, which is the musculocutaneous, radial, and the ulnar. But we don't stop there because we have our last final tail one, which is the medial cutaneous. And there's one for the arm and one for the forearm. Our final terminal branch is the median branch, which combines root fibers for almost every single one of the ones that are in the brachial plexus. The median branch kind of makes an M because of all the other terminal branches combining to make it. So it's a really good one to use when you're trying to figure out where you are on the brachial plexus and trying to identify the other branches. Alrighty. So we're just going to review the parts of the brachial plexus before we continue on to talk about the terminal branches and where they innervate. This is just a quick review and also to help you remember like which one goes where. So we know it's roots, trunks, divisions, cords, and then terminal branches. A good way to remember that, really tired, drink cold black tea. Keeps you caffeinated. These are the important terminal branches that we reviewed, but I didn't have enough space to go over what each one does. So this is just kind of, I put the main terminal branches on one side and the other branches on the other. So it's like on the other side for the main terminal ones to remember, I always think of like MMRU. So I think of Mimi run. There's no N, but ulnar kind of makes like the run part with the radial part. So, or with the R, so run. I don't know if you call your grandma that. I don't, but I've heard people call it that before. And then there's just the other ones on the other side that are all the pectorals are over there, and then all the medial cutaneous, and then our A1 star player, the auxiliary one. So we're gonna go over what each one does. I made this nice little table. The bolded muscles are ones that we have to have the movements memorized for. There's more muscles to learn about, but I want to focus on these ones because it deals with the upper part of the arm or upper limb with some of the shoulder movement. So the ones that are bolded for musculocutaneous are the biceps brachii, coracobrachialis, brachialis. We're going to go over all the movements too for each one. And then focusing on the radial with the triceps brachii, the axillary with the deltoid, and the teres minor. And then we can't forget about all our pectoralis major and minor. So that's why we had the medial pectoral and the lateral pectoral too. Different elements of sensory as well as motor, just how we talked about in the beginning, but I wanted to focus more on the movements right now. And it's important that we know how to use these muscles, or that we have these nerves, so that we can do things like this. I'm wondering, why did I show you that video? Was it because I can learn how to do that dance? I mean, like, yeah, but more the fact to see like the nice flexion, extension, the medial rotation and lateral rotation, but also just to see a doctor, because that's probably what most of us are aspiring to be. So let's continue onward. So we're gonna go over the muscle compartments so that we can possibly learn how to do those dances, and also just, the organization. So we're gonna focus mainly on the anterior and the posterior muscles, but the chest ones and the back ones are also important. That's why certain ones are capitalized, because those are muscles that we went over when we were talking about innervation from the brachial plexus. So let's continue for their movements. And as you go along, try to think about which one, when I say a muscle, where it went. Make sure if you need help, screenshot that diagram that I made before. So this is the biceps brachii, brachialis, and the brachialis, which those all flex the elbow. So my arm is extended like this, it will come up and bend like that. So in some flexion. And that's usually their primary muscle movement. Next, we'll be doing the posterior arm muscles, which is the antagonist to the anterior muscles. So this is the triceps brachii. So if your arm is bent up in its flexion mode, it will extend it the other way. So flexion, extension. These are some of the chest muscles. So we have the deltoid, which does abduction and also does flexion and extension, medial rotation of the glenohumeral joint. We also have the pectoralis major and minor. The minor lifts the ribs, elevating them, and the major does a lot of other things, just kind of like the deltoid, where it does adduction, so it pulls things down and flexes along with the medial rotation of the glenohumeral joint. So the deltoid and the pectoralis are kind of antagonists to each other. They do some things that are the exact same, but they also do things that are opposite of each other. Last but not least, we have the back muscle. Hopefully you recognize those bones, the scapula, humerus, and the clavicle. So the teres minor laterally rotates the glenohumeral joint. So if it's forward like this, it rolls it back like that, which you saw in the dance. Let's say, for example, you are climbing a tree like this. But you see a bug that looks like this. So you fall down from the tree like that. As you're falling down from the tree, you're grabbing onto the branches, trying to make sure you don't fall, but you catch yourself, and in the process, you damage your lateral cord. Which muscles do you think would be hurt? If you said some of the brachialis and the bicep brachii, you're right. You're probably gonna have trouble doing the motion, as I was saying before, with like flexion or with extension, or just flexion of just moving those muscles in general. So that's just an example of a slight clinical correlation of like how that would work in like a situation where you might actually hurt or damage your brachial plexus. And that's where we're gonna stop today. So thank you for watching. Hope you're having a good one. Bye.